when the Bob Menendez story broke, we were like, see, this is the kind of corruption I can get behind. This is like Egyptian spies and gold bars and like sports cars. This is that old school 50s level like Bond corruption. I'm down with. Yeah.
Before we get to the video, please like, comment, subscribe, share it to that uncle who's a communist. And if he isn't, he will be.
Don't forget to follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionary rhetoric. And Revolutionary Rhetoric is an affiliate of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network.
All right, let's get to the video.
Well, I was not say we, I should say Kanan spent all day like preparing like what really strong notes about each of the cabinet picks and the positions that they're filling. And the first one you have here is Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, which, by God, what a pick for Attorney General, for the guy to lead what is arguably like one of the not the strongest position, but like one of the most powerful positions, because it's the head of the FBI, the head of the DEA, the head of every federal law enforcement agency, as well as like who America prosecutes and tries as criminals. A guy who is like notoriously a criminal, a sex trafficker, like almost certainly a pedophile. Just what a pick, what a strong swing and a miss for Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. And he, I mean, so like I have heard some back and forth of like this isn't certain, but I think as of now it is confirmed, right?
Yeah, these are the ones that he has picked. Doesn't mean they are going to be in the cabinet.
Yeah, because he's resigned from Congress. So like, but these are all Senate confirmable. Where most of these we're going to talk about are Senate confirmable positions. And kind of some of the articles I was reading is that like this might be a difficult kind of road to hoe, as it were, because the Republicans did take the Senate 53-47, but he's made enemies and he's not well liked.
Exactly. He was slamming McCarthy in last year, 2023.
He almost got into didn't he almost get into a fist fight? Well, that's those are congressmen, so they won't actually have a vote in this. This will be a Senate hearing, but still, they caucus with each other and they party. They all kind of golf in the same club.
They're some of them are roommates. When most of the Congress people and senators, they share housing in DC. Each other. So a lot of them are roommates. So it's not like, and they all do that prayer breakfast shit together too. So it's not like they it's not like they don't see each other all the time.
Good Lord, make these pedophilic cases go away from me.
Well, that's the thing, because the House was gonna vote next week on like whether to like issue this report on Matt Gaetz's like I think the details of his like the investigation so far into his minor sex trafficking probe.
That's why he
so
resigned.
far. So this is a pretty opportune time to be the head of the department that would have prosecuted yourself.
Isn't that what Trump's doing at the end of the day? Trump is literally trying to become president again, realistically, because
to avoid
being
or sentencing, I guess. He's been prosecuted. It's like to avoid sentence. I
mean, it's like almost like projection. Every single person that he's picked in his cabinet is almost like a projection of what the opposite is.
Well, it's just like compare it, because like his 2016 cabinet was like kooky and like whatever, but those guys by and large were like experienced in whatever fields they were. Like
a lot of them were Washington insiders.
And these people, he has packed basically some of the most powerful positions, like Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General. These are not like nothing positions, right? This is like some of the most powerful people in the world, and he's packed them with just basically just incredible sycophants, like some of the most like proven idiot like level.
I think the only like a notable like congressperson or senator, it has to be Marco Rubio. He's like the only person
who's fucking Secretary of State, dude.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's like actually insane.
It's bonkers. Well, as far as Gaetz goes, like I had to go look up to see if he was even an attorney.
That's because it wouldn't have. Tweet I saw was that.
I was
how has he not been disbarred?
I didn't know that he was a lawyer. I didn't know that.
Bro, have you seen his eyebrows? I'm like,
I don't know, but I would be surprised if you.
What the fuck is happening?
I'd be surprised
with his goddamn eyebrows. It's scaring me, and I think I see the devil.
I don't know that you need to be a practicing attorney or hold a bar, because like because the bar is a state by state thing. Like, would it be Maryland or like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you need to be a practicing lawyer to be the Attorney General. Because I mean,
I don't know, but the reason why I looked is because I don't know how you could be the Attorney General if you weren't ever a lawyer. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, the health who's the Surgeon General wasn't a doctor. The last Surgeon General was a I think a nurse practitioner. So like, you know.
What about EPA?
Wait,
the head of the EPA doesn't have a medical degree. He's literally a fucking.
Who was that about the Surgeon General?
I think that was under Biden, right? Biden's Surgeon General wasn't a doctor.
Nurse practitioner.
I could be wrong about that. I'm going off a recollection
That's
from 2020,
wild.
but I think because that was my wife is a doctor and she was like, kind of like peeved about that because it's like if you know. But then I think we looked it up and it's like you didn't really need to be. But also to be fair, the Secretary of Education under Biden had only been a classroom teacher for like 2 years, so like you know, it's not like these positions.
Well, under Trump, the first term under Trump was it Nancy DeVoe or whatever.
DeVos.
Was she ever a teacher?
No, she was like a charter school like administrator. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
if I remember correctly, but that was 8 years ago, so I don't quite remember. Yeah, he hasn't actually appointed, and that one hits a little close to home for me. So I am actually keeping an eye on who he picks for Department of Education. He hasn't picked that one yet, so I have like alerts for that because I'm like, oh, that's gonna actually because as a public school teacher, that really kind of affects me, and I mean not so much, but like. It's because Washington's pretty insulated. We talked about this last week on our episode of like, yeah, Trump won, but Washington is pretty insulated as far as like any kind of legislation that gets passed nationally. Washington will either ignore or do everything they can to like cushion. But anyway, yeah, Matt Gaetz. I don't know. It's I thought there was one other thing to say about this, but
if you scroll down there, might be.
Yeah, I don't know. What a pick. I can't.
Insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just what I wanted to say was just it's that classic anecdote of like the police. Anytime there's a police misconduct issue, it's they investigate themselves and find no wrongdoing. Well, right. That's now Matt Gaetz is like he is the FBI, he is the DEA.
Trump's
we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing.
Yeah, and so like Matt Gaetz can now investigate his own federal probe of sex trafficking and be like, I investigated myself and I found no wrongdoing.
Gaetz comes up to Trump and is like, help me out, bro. Trump's like, I got you, Matt. Yeah. I got you. I'm going to put you right where you need to be.
Yeah, and so now we can move on to probably what is like the dumbest one, which is the new department. The Department of Government Efficiency.
Oh my god.
The Doge Department.
Like, dude,
is that embarrassing?
It's so stupid that it's funny. Like I can't.
It's hilarious.
So
yeah, and I saw the funniest take online, and I shared it in one of our group chats this morning, which is like it's still so very funny that to fight government inefficiency, they created a new branch of or a new federal agency, and then not only gave it one but two heads.
Two people.
So two people. Yes. So like to fight inefficiency, they added a new branch and then gave it 2 leaders, which I just think is that sums up the state of this perfectly.
God. And both of them are just like some tech bros.
And there's
and it's so embarrassing.
The whole like
so embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's such a joke. It's such an embarrassing joke. They have no idea how the government is run.
Yeah.
And I mean, like as somebody who works with the public sector, I can tell you that there's definitely a lot of areas that you can clean up your government, but that most of that is like local government. Like most of what you deal with that is incompetent are like the local pencil pushers at your county or your city or people at the DMV. At the federal level, cleaning up that is just going to create a nightmare.
Yeah, like I don't disagree. I think that like the federal government I think is like probably unwieldy. I think there are a lot of like redundancies and inefficiencies if you were to actually do like a complete audit, which I know they've done with the military recently. We talked about this last week actually, which was like that audit of the military recently just found like how much waste and inefficiency there was. But I was talking to my students about this. So we were looking at like breakdowns of like federal government spending and like based on like where the government spends its money. And so like if you were, because they've I don't know if the notes say it here, but Vivek and Musk have they've claimed that they're going to slash $2 trillion from basically the federal budget, right? So like, so that's their goal is to cut $2 trillion. And I'm like, well, you could easily do that with the military, right? Because we spend $9 trillion or whatever on the military. So it's like that would be the obvious choice. And I was like, how much do you want to bet they're not going to touch military spending?
Dude, it's going to go up.
No,
they're going to cut $2 trillion and then just transition it towards the military.
Which leads me to wonder. I wonder why they haven't filled some of these positions, like the Department of Education, because like there just might not be a Department of Education soon because
they want to get rid of it.
Yeah. So like that, there's a bunch of vacancies still. There's a bunch of vacancies.
Get rid of a Department of Education.
I think they're going to eliminate the EPA too. They're saying they want to relocate it from Washington D.C. That's just fucking code name for eliminating it.
Yeah. Well, the guy they got to fill that too, which we can talk about that next, is that guy's like he's voted against the Clean Air Act and like to repeal the Clean Air Act in Congress when he was in Congress, and like that guy's just a Trump stooge who's like he was a Florida congressman? I can't remember.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember the original nominee from the first Trump administration in 2016, which was Scott Pruitt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was an oil executive.
Yeah. We were talking about this briefly off air, I think. Yeah.
We were just talking about. You're putting like the complete opposite of the person that should be running things.
Yeah. Well, that's the point, right?
Yeah.
That's
intentionality. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the point.
Well, and to the point about the EPA, you also have to look at like what's going on with like projects that they're doing right now. Like, for example, we have here in Oxnard a Superfund site out at Ormond Beach that is supposed to be cleaned up because it's got like some toxic metals and stuff that's leaching into the water. Well, the EPA, I think it was like the day before the election or the day of the election, they put a pause on that. They put a pause on the cleanup. And so I think that you can kind of like get a sense of where, like you just said, holding on, even appointing the Department of Education secretary, you can kind of get a sense on what people are thinking is going to happen when they're doing things like pausing projects. Because ultimately, I think that like that Superfund EPA cleanup site is probably going to just go away.
Just go away. Yeah, just quietly go off.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this guy, Lee Zeldin is his name. I was wrong. He's not a Florida congressman. He's a New York congressman. He's basically has like an incredibly low like score of like voting for the environment, which isn't surprising. I mean, he's a MAGA Republican, so it's not like they're ever for Republican, or for conservation or for the environment. But like this, just kind of like, it's just every position Trump has avoided. It just seems like it's intentionally the worst possible pick, or at least the most like it's opposite day 100%. For every pick. Like some of the stuff this guy has voted against is like, it makes it very clear like what direction the EPA will be headed, if it even exists. To Heather's point, so it's just it's wild. I don't know if you want to like just keep going through this list. So we talked about the new department, the Doge department. We talked about Attorney General. We talked about the EPA. We can jump right over to our old friend Tulsi Gabbard as director of the NSA, which is, again, arguably one of the most powerful positions in the world.
It's crazy,
which is like,
man.
It's just somebody that silly and unserious in one of like the most terrifying and like powerful like
this
positions.
Is one of the scariest ones.
This one and the CIA and Matt Gaetz, I think, is like those are the three scariest, because it's like those guys control like the FBI, the ATF, the DEA. Those are incredibly amounts of like power. The NSA, the CIA.
Yeah. I feel so fucking embarrassed that I ever supported Tulsi. Like back in the day, I really liked her because of her non-interventionist policies in the Middle East. Like I really liked her stances on Syria. And then when I found out about all her Fox News shit and how she just came a full-on right-wing grifter.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, fuck this.
Yeah, I was in the same camp. I was like somewhat like neutral to pro Tulsi, like early days, like 2016, kind of, and around then. And then it was
anti-imperialist shit.
Yeah, for the same reasons. Then even like up to 2020, I was still like, I wasn't so radicalized yet. I was like looking at Tulsi, I was looking at Buttigieg. I was like, who are these people? And like, I was kind of like sniffing around those candidates, because I was like, I don't know these people too well. Let's see what they're about. But there was this podcast series called Worst Year Ever by Robert Edmonds and Cody Johnson and Katie Stoll. If you guys know like any of the Some More News or the Old Crack people. And they did like these really deep dive exposés on all these candidates, and they did Tulsi Gabbard. And that's when I like learned all about like her like the cult stuff and just like all of her crazy shit. And I was just like,
crazy shit.
Oh
like
my
Hindu
god,
nationalism.
Yeah, and I was like, oh okay, so this person is like off the deep end. Yeah.
Well, let me read something here. This is off an article I found off of Sebring India, the site. And it says, after Modi's election 2014 in a public gathering at a Hindu temple in Atlanta, organized by the Overseas Friends of BJP, the American chapter of the BJP, the Gabbard's re-election campaign describing her as an American Hindu who has fought against anti-Modi resolution introduced recently by some members of Congress. According to Gabbard's financial disclosures from 2011 to October 2018, majority of her donors have strong ties with the Sangh Parivar, which is basically a Hindu nationalist. Yeah. So the majority of her money coming to her election campaigns is literally from like outside of the U.S., from literal right-wing groups in India.
Yeah, that's leading up to her 2020 run.
Yeah, and I also read that she's very anti-LGBTQ. So it sounds like she's just a fascist.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a populist fascist. Yeah.
Well, she's in support of Modi. And Modi is literally
an Indian fascist. Yeah, And then just to go to that populist.
The definition of a fascist.
Yeah, and like to kind of go to that populist of like, yeah, she was a Democrat when it suited her, and then now she became a MACA Republican when it didn't, and so like it's just kind of
saw that Bernie was doing well with Medicare for all. She's like, I support Medicare for all, and then doesn't go into why Medicare for all is great, and just starts talking about her non-intervention stuff, and then turns around and calls for more war on Fox News, and I'm just like, dude, this. This is like one of the worst people you can have in politics. She's like, put my finger in the wind. Where the fuck is this wind blowing? I'm going that way.
Yeah, it's totally unprincipled.
Yeah, typical careerist too.
Absolutely.
All right, can we talk about?
I think the thing with Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz, they were the ones announced yesterday. That was when it became clear to me that these are probably loyalty tests for the Senate. Like, I really feel like this is he's just trying to see who lines up where as quickly as he can.
And I read an article today that was like because it was about like just the strangeness of these picks. Like, these are very unconventional picks. Like, even for Trump, this is like kind of just it's very abrasive to pick just his incredible like sycophant loyalists in some of these really high positions.
Sorry, I gotta leave for 1 second. We gotta make a call.
Do you want to just step in that room? Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so this article was saying something that like it was a quote from him, which was like all of the other candidates were quote boring, I think was the actual quote, and like he's actually like, I think he's just losing like what little patience he had left, and just based off his first term of choosing these people that weren't fire. I think that was the end of the quote, was that he wanted quote firebrands. So like he's intentionally choosing people that are just like this. So I don't know if it's like, to your point, Heather, just like kind of a stress test for the Senate to find out who, or a loyalty test, or if it's just like he's just what little mind he has left, and he just wants to choose people that are just yes men and just will say yes to him whatever he says, and then that also just like have proven their loyalty already on the campaign trails or throughout the campaign.
Yeah, I agree with Heather's point. I think it's just a full-on like authoritarian test. Like, authoritarians don't care about qualifications; they care about loyalty.
Yeah. He's looking for people that'll let him do whatever he wants. Like even Barr wouldn't do everything Trump wanted.
Yeah, I mean, like, if this is the fucked up part about like, I guess just MAGA-ism and like this thing is like, you look back and it's like it makes Bush look like a moderate and it makes Romney look like a moderate, and it's just like, I hate that because I hated those people and I still do, but it's like,
yeah, they still suck.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, they suck.
Think about this. We had to have fucking Rex Tillerson.
I gotta leave.
A former
emergency call from my girlfriend, so I gotta go.
When I saw those photos yesterday of the two of them like yucking it up at the White House, it was like all of a sudden I just felt like, okay, so we had like 4 years and now it's like we've just been returned. I don't know how to explain it, but it just felt like I don't know, like we pressed pause for the last 4 years, and now we're just going right back. Like, are we going to pick up where we left off? Is it going to, like, what is it going to be like?
Isn't it so hilarious that, like, so we had Joe Biden, right, when COVID was going on? Every single day he was running, he would talk about how many people died from the virus. He would talk about over and over again what a fascist dictator Trump was, up until, like, a couple of weeks ago. Now he's just fucking chopping it up, just living life.
Ear-to-ear smiles.
Yeah. Fucking horse.
I've never seen, like, I saw so many videos last night on TikTok where people were talking about how they've never seen him more happy. And it's like...
Well, it's like Carlin said, it's one big club and you ain't in it.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Kanan had a family emergency he had to step out for, but we'll leave. We'll cut off. We'll strategically cut what we need to, and if y'all were talking while we were out, of course we'll keep that in.
Hope everything's okay.
I don't know. I think his fiance was in some kind of pain, so he had to rush out and help her out. I don't know the full details. He just kind of ran out the door. But it didn't sound like it was too serious, so hopefully everything's well there. I think what I was saying before I left was like, oh, it was your point about like Bill Barr. Yeah, like Bill Barr at the time was like a monster, but now he seems like a reasonable pick, and it's just like that's how far like out of sync we are with, I think, like I don't know. That was the whole like Biden myth of like a return to normalcy and a return to this normal politics, and it's just like I don't know that I don't think those days are ever coming back. Like this is the new normal, because it makes this new normal makes that out of normal feel normal, and like return to which version of normal, right? The Bill Barr normal, like the Mitt Romney normal, like I don't know. It's all just varying degrees of bad.
I mean, even the second Bush administration, like his 8 years were nothing compared to Trump.
Yeah.
Right? Like they were all lunatics and war criminals and gaslighters and liars and all that shit. But like they were at least like not totally insane.
Yeah, professionals, is that the right word? Like they were professionals?
They were professional assholes, right?
Yeah.
These guys are just hacks, right?
Yeah. Well, while you were walking Kanon out, I was saying, like, yesterday I saw those photos from Trump's visit to the White House, and it, like, all of a sudden just hit me, like, okay, so it's like we got 4 years off, and now it's like, what are we just picking up where we left off? Because, like, at the end of Trump's first term, things were pretty like crazy, and they were like with the My Pillow guy and stuff. Like it had become a circus, like right at the end, right? And yesterday I was just like, okay, so things weren't great under Joe Biden, but now it's like I guess we're going back to the My Pillow guy. I mean, that's where we're at. We're like I'm waiting to hear when he gets a position.
He's gonna be the Surgeon General.
Right.
And also to that point, like Susie Wiles, his selection for chief of staff, said that, I heard this whole thing on CNN, like, they made this big deal about how she took a tough line with Trump, and she said that she would only take the position if the usual circus wasn't coming around this time. And I was like, who is left? Who the fuck is left? Who is left? Mike Lindell. That's it. Crackhead to CEO. My Pillow, like Mike Lindell. That's it. I think. Right?
I mean,
Giuliani.
Giuliani. Yeah.
I mean,
I was just gonna say that.
There's a handful of other kind of like people that were in his orbit where I'm like, well, I want to see like where they land.
What's Steve Bannon gonna do?
Yeah, what's Roger Stone gonna do? What's
Roger Stone, that guy.
Yeah,
hilarious.
Like, I wonder, like, if if I don't know if Ted Cruz would ever give up his Senate seat. I mean, he just
Ted fucking.
He almost lost it this last election. He was like
Allred almost won.
Yeah, it wasn't like super close, but I mean, it wasn't like super far either. And I was looking it up. I want to do like just an on the spot fact check. I can't find any recent Surgeon General that was just not just a nurse practitioner, not to like shit on nurses, but that was not an MD. I'll have to do a little fact checking on that and find what I thought I meant by that. So, little live retraction. Maybe I was mistaken there.
I mean, I don't know if he's a doctor or what, but I originally thought you were talking about Trump's Surgeon General, which actually that makes me wonder who Trump's Surgeon General is going to be this time, because Jerome Adams has turned out to be, pretty reasonable since Trump left office, but I don't see him appointing him again.
It's probably going to be that doctor that he had.
Oh, Scott Atlas?
Either that, whoever saw him, whoever gave him like his physical. Who was that did his physicals?
It's going to be Dr. Oz.
Ronnie something.
Yeah, Ronnie something. Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz is the Surgeon General. That actually...
Oh my god.
I said that as kind of a meme, but now that I say it out loud, I'm like, damn, that actually might be it. Like, I would not be surprised if Dr. Oz became the Surgeon General.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised.
I saw something online today, and someone was like, I knew the picks were going to be crazy, but I did not have the imagination that I needed to see what's coming down the pike this week.
Well, I want to bring up probably what is, I think, the strangest pick, which is Pete Hegseth as Defense Secretary, this guy is the Department of Defense. This is the America's military, the DOD. I mean, this is... Yeah. Like I've made this point a few times. These are not like insignificant positions. These are some of the most powerful positions on earth. Like, in addition to like the president and the vice president, like the Department of Defense and like the Secretary of State, these are no joke. And like, this guy is just a really strange pick. This is just like, this guy has no real experience of any kind. He was
what
a
about
national...
his plans for the generals too? Like he's just gonna purge all these so-called woke generals.
That's what this guy's kind of whole deal is. Yeah, he's like he's questions like he thinks he wrote a book apparently about how the military is just more concerned with diversity than like leading, and he's questioned women's role in combat before. I mean, this guy he has like right wing kind of Christian. He has a bunch of like iron crosses on his body, a bunch of tattoos of like iron crosses, and like yeah, and like he is a veteran, but I think as far as I understand it, he was just an infantryman in the National Guard. Like he was basically like kind of.
No,
is that
he
wrong?
was in the army. He served in Iraq, and he's decorated. He
was a lieutenant colonel or something.
Oh, is he that high? Okay, I didn't know he was an officer.
Got several Bronze Stars, and that's actually I wanted to say. That's where I think the Democrats have made a really big mistake is disparaging his military experience. I'm not saying that you disparaged his military experience.
No, I was just mistaken. Yeah, I thought it was
out on like Twitter, the Democratic Party is disparaging his military experience, and all that's done is increase his popularity on the right, because the last thing you want to do is talk shit about somebody who has served over, talk shit about our military, right? Just like the cops. They don't want you to talk shit about the cops. They don't want you to talk shit about the military. So that's just increased his popularity on the right. And so I think that was a mistake that they made.
Sure.
And I think he will be our Secretary of Defense probably for that reason, because his popular opinion, at least as of right now, is pretty good. But I also read that he has sex allegations against him too.
No, yeah, that's not super
don't
surprising. Yeah, I think like there's very few on this list that don't.
I have a question for you guys. When do you think Jesse Waters gets a job?
Yes.
I mean, that guy's got to be making tens of millions on like Fox and Friends, right? Like, would he give up a position? Like, I mean, because Pete Hegseth, he wasn't like a super like big pundit on Fox. I mean, he was on Fox and Friends, but like, this is a lot of power. Like, I would just be surprised if Jesse Waters or somebody kind of that level of like, that's like one of the faces of Fox. You know what I mean? Like, that guy's hundreds of millions or whatever. So I don't know what his actual salary is, but I mean, it's got to be ludicrous. I would be surprised. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. There was a bunch of memes going around though about like Sean Hannity about how like how come I haven't gotten a call yet?
I would be surprised if they took them, because like I mean if you look at this list, like the picks are all strange, but like look at what a Florida congressman's salary is, right? Like 160 or something, you know. And that's
I don't think it's about salary though.
I don't think so either, but my point is it's about the power and the salary, right? But somebody like Jesse Waters, like I think it does come down to money. If you're that level of like mega rich, like would you take a 400% pay cut to be like a cabinet position where like knowing that it's only going to be potentially for 4 years, like depending on how that shakes out, but like
could be 6 months.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I just think that's if somebody's such an ingrained like media, I don't know.
Plus, if you work in the government, you could just have like a book sale easily. Like you can just fucking make a career of just having served in the government because people listen to you.
Well, I think also, if you're talking about like the press secretary, I think pretty much every press secretary has a fast pass when they leave the White House to, MSNBC, Fox. So I feel like he could go back to Fox, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
But I do think that to the point about people in Congress, right? Jordan said he thinks it's about power. I actually think it's about access to information for personal investments. So like look at Nancy Pelosi and how much she has grown her wealth, and a number of congressmen. And I think you might have people that would take a cabinet position because they would have that kind of access as well. Because you could have what is his name? Jesse Waters?
Jesse Waters, yeah. He's the guy with the hair.
He could probably triple or quadruple his personal wealth with the right information, and playing it right. I mean, that's of course probably illegal, but
that's a good point.
I mean, just classical insider trading.
Yeah.
Just your old school corruption. That's what we were like when the Bob Menendez story broke, we were like, see, this is the kind of corruption I can get behind. This is like Egyptian spies and gold bars and like sports cars. This is that old school 50s level like bond corruption I'm down with. Yeah.
So I'm looking up Pete Hegseth on Wikipedia here. It says he was a platoon leader, which it says is usually a first or second lieutenant.
Okay. which is relatively. I mean, that's the first officer rank or second.
It says it's a junior officer.
Yeah,
rank
so that's
usually,
a relatively low. I mean, that's either depending on first or second lieutenant. That's either the first or second officer position, as low as an officer position can get. So like, not that that's again, not that these conversations have kind of proven that none of these positions require any type of experience within that field to be like, because like if you're leading all of America's military, surely you'd want somebody who has experience as like a general or an admiral or some kind of like high-ranking military official. And like, not to shit on this guy's like military
weapons.
career or selling weapons, fair enough. But this guy has no like battalion, like not battalion, but like logistical, like I don't know.
Management,
right?
No
management, and that's like from what I understand about military and the military history that I understand is like, what's that Ludendorff? There's like I studied World War I generals, and it's all like generalship comes down to logistics and like management, and that's what this guy doesn't seem to have, but that's okay.
Well, ultimately all of these positions are managerial positions. Like even RFK, that's a management position. He's going to manage, all these other government agencies, FDA, CDC, etc. And so to me, it's not even just about like the experience that they have in that particular field, but do they have any managerial experience? And overwhelmingly, none of these people do.
Yeah, and I would say also like another big part of that too isn't necessarily even that so far as like just doing what either they want to do or what Trump wants them to do, because like what all of these positions have in common, which is probably the scarier, like if you take a step back and look at what positions have been picked, is defense, justice, NSA, like CIA, all of like the kind of the armed forces and or like intelligence agencies are all the ones that were picked first. I guess EPA notwithstanding is the only one that's like really not of a certain
the basic security apparatus.
Yeah, and so what all of these people and what all of these positions have in common is that they're all like what you use when you either want to like take over or invade and or like what you really want on your side as if you're planning a coup or planning an invasion. And so that's kind of what and like again the other position being Homeland Security. So it's all this intelligence agencies and all of the armed forces agencies are the only ones that are like have been staffed so far. So they're all kind of painting a picture of like, okay, these are the priorities, and these are the people that he wants. I guess Kristi Noem as the Homeland Security. Again, these are like not to like disparage these people.
The lady that killed her dog.
Yep. Yeah, shot her dog and her goat or whatever. If I remember the story correctly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, these are all like relatively junior congressmen too. Like, but they're all like, I mean, I guess Gates has been in office for a while. But like Vivek isn't all that experienced. Tulsi Gabbard, relatively 10-ish years.
Is not experienced at all.
Yeah, but I don't mean like with
a billionaire
with anything. But I just mean like even like what a weird pick of like Kristi Noem, who's only been, I think she's only been in Congress since 2018, right? Like these are people that are like not.
She's a governor. She's the governor.
Oh, that was the governor of South Dakota, right? But I think it was one of the ones who was a congressman. I'm getting confused now.
Tulsi.
No, well, yeah, Tulsi, but I think there was more picks. But anyway, they're all like
Stefanik.
Oh, it's at least Stefanik. That's what it was. Yeah, she's only been a congresswoman, I think, since 2018, maybe, or 2016 or something. And so it's like
fucking libs of TikTok lady.
Yeah, so it's wild. I forget what she was chosen for. We actually don't have her here on the notes, but it was another position. The only one we have here that we haven't talked about is a couple. Mike Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel.
Huckabee's one of the worst human beings on the planet.
At least Stefanik is ambassador to the UN.
Oh, ambassador to the UN, right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just insanity.
Again, kind of following the same theme here. And then RFK, which we've kind of danced around as the Department of Health and Human Services, which I just can't imagine where that goes. We've followed RFK on our show like pretty consistently because I'm fascinated by this man. I love his brain. I love the way his mind works. Yeah,
he's hilarious.
We were just breaking all these stories. How the stories were break. We were reporting on just all of the weird shit that he was getting up to, like the dead bear and the whale head that he strapped to the roof of his car, or like just everything he gets up to. And we watched like his campaign ads on our show and stuff. We were obsessed with RFK for a while in like the dumbest possible way. And this guy is now in charge of our health and human services. So, oofta. So we'll see how this goes.
Well, I think it'll depend on who gets appointed to all the agencies like CDC and FDA, because
if they exist.
If they still exist, yeah. I mean, there are things that RFK has suggested that I think I'm open to. and I can look at as positives. For example, eliminating, the corporate the drug companies from having so much influence over the FDA. I think we can all agree that that'll be positive if he is able to do that. I don't think he will, but that could be a positive. And the thing about the food, I think that's great, but everything else is kind of very concerning.
Yeah.
The funniest tweet I saw about that was from a doctor over in London, he's a internal medicine doctor, and he said, "I just realized that RFK is gonna take the fluoride out of the water and replace it with
just gonna talk about that,
replace it with ivermectin."
Oh no. Yeah, I saw the whole fluoride, like a national ban on fluoride in water.
You know what?
Crazy.
Yeah. You know who RFK is? He's one of the generals in the war room from Dr. Strangelove. That's who he is.
Yeah.
He's the guy who hates fluoride because he thinks it's because the Soviets are trying to brainwash everybody.
Yeah.
Like, that's RFK.
Turning the frogs gay energy. Yeah.
It's also just indicative that RFK doesn't understand local versus federal government, because like fluoride in water is a city.
It's like municipality kind of issue.
Decision that's not at all up to the federal government.
Yeah. If anything, that would be more of like an EPA thing, I guess. Like, because it's under the purview of like a Clean Water Act. I don't know.
And Heather probably knows more about this too because she was running for water board.
Well, it's a state. I think it's a state regulation. The state regulates how much you can and how much you should have of all the different constituents, including things that you add. So I think the state tells you what like the outer limits are, and then like you said, Jordan, the like regions decide for themselves what they want to do. So yeah, I agree with you. His concept of the different branches of or the different levels of government is kind of concerning but again, like these are people who don't have managerial like experience as public managers. And this is why I have continued to advocate for like people that are in public administration or public management being put in these positions, which is what you typically do.
Right.
Yeah.
But not
yeah, I mean that goes back to the point of like these people have very little experience with anything, let alone like managerial. But like they're all relatively young, relatively like they've didn't do much before they joined Congress, and then just became talking heads for Congress, and then just that kind of and the clout that kind of comes with that. And now they're being thrust into some of the most powerful positions in the world, and so they're people that lack seriousness, they lack any kind of experience whatsoever, and like we've seen this time and time again, they lack like kind of basic understanding or a basic grasp on just how government works in general. Like there's just the tariff anecdote is still kind of that whole thing of like it seems like no one in the Trump administration still fully understands what a tariff is and how tariffs work, and that's like one of the funnier aspects of this to me is that Trump still doesn't know what a tariff is. Right. It's like that belies the greater problem with this is just like a fundamental lack of understanding of basically anything that they're doing, which I think was the one kind of saving grace with the Trump administration. That kind of like if there was a silver lining, it's like he's evil, but he's like a chaotic, unorganized evil, and that there's a certain like Dick Cheney was scary and Obama was scary because they were very like focused and like professional at it. And so I think like maybe this is the best possible outcome because all of these people are so unserious and unfocused and just like are just there for clout on Fox News and like not actually like knowing what they're doing. So maybe there's a certain positive to that. I don't know. Is there a way we can maybe put a positive spin on these oddball picks?
Maybe.
Or is that too optimistic? Is that wildly too optimistic?
Yeah.
I think just because it's microscopic, right? Like everybody's gonna have a focus on these people because all of us know on the left that whenever a Democrat is in power, everybody just fucking looks the other direction.
Yeah.
And people can just do whatever they want. So when you have Trump, especially in power, and he's nominating all these people pay attention closer. Constantly. So I feel like that's the only positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've talked about it a little bit too, but I think the overall lack of experience with any kind of like management of anything from these people, at least what appears to be lack of management experience, is going to be a a positive because they won't necessarily be able to implement things as well as someone who has experience doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also,
it doesn't mean they're going to be good. It just, it just means that they're going to half-ass some shit, and it's going to, maybe not be as terrible as it could have been if someone who knew what they were doing was implementing some terrible policy.
Well, I know we've been going for a while, so I want to kind of wrap this up with two kind of final questions to you. One is more of like something that just occurred to me, and I want to. I'm curious to see how much kind of carte blanche Musk gets, like how much authority or kind of purview does Musk get if they're going to be in charge of like auditing and cutting government deregulation as well as spending as well as like agencies. Surely that would kind of then it would be understandable that they would be given a certain level of power. And as we all know, I don't know how much you follow kind of the Musk news about how poorly he runs his companies and how he just gets in everybody's way and he'll just send messages at all hours of the night. And it's just like he gives contradictory orders and stuff. I wonder if that's actually the saving grace to this is because Musk will be given kind of like ownership of all of these agencies or like have free reign to kind of audit and come and go while giving contradictory orders to close down and open up branches and like, sending Marco Rubio one thing and then Kristi Noem or Elise Stefanik a different message and stuff. And I'm excited for the level of like cartoonish buffoonery that comes out of that.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other kind of point I wanted to make was looking over the profile of a lot of these people and their history of like where they vote and where they stand on a lot of like foreign aid and foreign issues. Like there are some pretty contradictory and competing ideologies among these people. Like Tulsi Gabbard is like a pretty isolationist, like pretty anti-internationalist person, which is in stark contrast to Marco Rubio, who has been like incredibly a proponent of like just like full invasion of Russia with like in support of Ukraine.
Bomb everybody.
Yeah, and so like I'm wondering if like there is really no like kind of rhyme or reason to these people's ideology, like independently like of their own like personal beliefs. And like obviously I don't know everything about Pete Hegseth, and I don't really know where Vivek stands on a lot of like the international issues because he just doesn't have that kind of profile. But I'm wondering if that will also kind of cause any kind of stumbling blocks of like a lot of these people are like fundamentally opposed to each other's ideologies, but will they fall in line? Like how's that going to work under like if you're just told to kind of fall in line under Trump? I don't know. I've just kind of talked a little bit. Feel free to kind of wrap up with anything you guys have or any final thoughts, any responses to those comments, or really whatever you want.
So, not sure about the government interaction of the whole cabinet, but you're already seeing people within the MAGA movement that are pissed about the nomination of the neocons in the Trump administration, which I think is pretty funny because, there's obviously a segment of right-wing libertarians that back Trump for whatever reason, or we know the reason, but there's a lot of right-wing libertarians that back Trump that are so-called anti-war. So they see these nominations and they're just like, oh, what the fuck? It's super funny just seeing it from a left-wing standpoint, just kind of outside looking in.
For sure. I think the Musk thing is, I think you hit it on the head. That's going to be like cartoonish buffoonery, like just amazingly sad and hilarious at the same time kind of thing. And, I'd be surprised if he makes it through 2025.
You think he's just going to get bored and leave?
He'll either get bored and leave, or Trump will fire him because he's just causing so much havoc.
I can't wait for that fallout. I don't think neither of their egos could like stand that level of like face off, and that's just gonna be a showdown for the ages.
Yeah, and I saw a story about either early this morning or yesterday about how people close to Trump are already pissed at Musk. Because he's just hanging out at Mar-a-Lago he's in every meeting, he's in every phone call, he's at every dinner, like he's just hanging out. Like, and he said something about how he's the first buddy.
Oh no. Yeah, like, he just seems like the most insufferable man to begin with, and like just being best friends with or being just that guy, that hanger on, that lingerer around the president. Mm-hmm. Well, we like last Thursday we recorded, and that was when the news first broke that he had just kind of butted in on that phone call with Zelensky, and like that was a lot of like the insiders around Trump were like, oh no, like Musk like won't go away, and this is actually going to be a problem because he just like butted in on this phone call between like the president-elect and a head of state, and it's like Elon Musk had kind of no business being there. And that was like a lot of people were fearing, like, is Musk just going to like weasel his way in? And we made predictions last week of like what position will Musk get, and like I predicted Space Force. I thought he was going to be put in charge of Space Force because that seems like it would be just vain enough, hilarious. And like that would have been the funniest possible thing. But
why would
like,
he not be defense secretary?
Yeah, I don't know, but like 3 days later, whatever, the story broke, like literally that he was going to be the Doge thing, and I was like, oh, we called it. I think we published that episode the day it was announced, what he was given, and one of our thumbnails, one of our mini videos, is like, what was Musk promised? Because like he donated 75 billion by himself, so like obviously he was promised something. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I think that the Doge, I actually think that the Doge thing is going to end up being not like an official department that Trump just created. I think it's going to be like an advisory thing in the end, which is probably going to be mocked in relentlessly, and you might see Musk lose interest quickly because of that. Right. But also, I do want to say that right now, the White House Chief of Staff is a big Biden donor. And when I think of Elon Musk hanging around Trump, I think about this guy, Jeff Zients, because he's basically been doing the same thing since 2020. He donated a fuck ton of money to Biden's election in 2020. He was first made the COVID czar. And then when he stepped down from doing that, he became the White House cause shortly after. And he is not qualified to be the cause. He's not qualified to be the COVID czar. He wasn't qualified to do any of those things, but he got the position because he donated a lot of money. And Elon Musk is like identical to that scenario, only he is doing it widely in public, whereas, Zients, nobody knows about that. And so I think that it's possible that Elon will stay around in some capacity, but maybe not the Doge thing, because I think that he'll probably get bored of, especially if it doesn't, because I feel like to create a whole department of the government, you have to get some congressional approval and big time funding. You have to be able to have an office, unless they're just going to be virtual. You have to have a mission statement.
Yeah.
People that are in it have to take
There's a lot of bureaucracy.
Yeah, there's a whole fuck ton of stuff that's going to have to happen.
They're going to make him like the ambassador to South Africa.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. So I think I think that Elon Musk I think the Doge thing is probably going to turn out to be a joke and will go away eventually, but I think Elon Musk is here to stay.
100%, yeah.
And the other reason I think that is, I don't know if you guys saw, but today he had like a secret meeting with 2 Iranian officials.
Musk?
Yeah.
Oh no.
That can't be good.
Yeah. Like what nonsense is going on in that room?
Yeah. So and so I mean, but again, that's just like Jeff Zients. And this is the thing about the Democrats and the Republicans is they both do the same thing, but the Democrats do it privately. Mm-hmm. And the Republicans are just doing it in your face. So I do think that he'll be around in some capacity. I just don't know what.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those times in history that we just genuinely cannot predict what the hell's going to happen. Yeah. There's literally no way to kind of know what's going to happen on any given moment, even day to day. Like who is what zany pick is going to be, whatever next. Like there's just no way to know what's going on at any given moment. And a lot of that, part of that is terrifying, and part of it's very exciting to be on. Like when you're on the left and you're kind of detached from Democrat or Republican politics, it's kind of a privileged and fucked up thing to say, but like some of it is funny, and it's like this is fun to like sit here and laugh at.
It's objectively hilarious.
Yeah,
I almost used the word excitement early on in the podcast.
I was like, excitement doesn't feel right.
Because at the time, I didn't feel like I could articulate it properly, but I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah.
Because like it's really, if you do say that, and you just have a normie listener listening, they're going to be like, oh, what the fuck?
Terrible, yeah. But it's like, but no, there is a certain level of like excitement that's like, this is fun in a lot of ways. And like, that is, like I said, that like, it's like watching, watching a car crash is fun, right? Yeah. Like it's
Yeah.
Do you remember in 2020, like every single day after COVID hit, like you'd wake up and it would be like that meme from Star Trek where it was like damage report, and then on Friday night like clockwork at like 6 o'clock, Trump would drop some shit on Twitter, and the whole weekend would be consumed by whatever he had said on Twitter.
Yeah.
And those two things, I was like, so we're back here again.
Yeah.
But it is kind of like, if you can remove yourself, like you can make memes and you can laugh about it and you just look at it, because it really is only going to be 4 years. We hope.
We hope. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier too, which I don't know if we touched on it too much, but you said something that was very like, I very much agree with, which is like, yeah, like it ramped up at near the end of Trump's last presidency to just be like screwball comedy levels of zany. And then it ended, and then it looks like they are picking up with that like 2.0 just right where they left off, of like just picking it up to be screwball. And like,
it's like we paused.
Yeah.
It really is 2016.
I would just hit play.
Yeah. Well, all right.
I think it's 2020 again.
That's it's like 2020,
it's like the craziest part.
Yeah, December of 2020, or like the summer of 2020, when it was just wild shit happening every day.
Really? Because I'm getting like early on 2016 or 2015 vibes when Trump was straight up like, yeah, Mexicans are rapists.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there's the darker side to it. Sure, I'm focusing on this more zany side, unfortunately. Yeah. But like we didn't even touch on, and because me and Kanan spent all last week talking about this, of like the trans issues, the like the immigration issues. Like there is a darker underbelly to this. We're kind of making light of a lot of these more funny aspects of it, but there is kind of a much more serious conversation to be had around these policies, where like this is the fun half of the coin. The other half is like trans bans and just like we didn't talk about the pick.
Shit.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the pick of the border czar, which was actually I think by Obama's border czar, and like this guy, like they're the levels
Holman.
of like, their like deportation quota goals that they're setting is like what was the law that just got passed of like or that is being discussed rather, that like I forget what it was specifically. I heard it on the radio this morning where it was like if illegal immigrants are found like being housed by citizens, the citizen can also be deported. And they're talking about deporting citizens, so it's like an idea
I
that they're
was just
floating.
going to talk about that. Yeah, they're talking about deporting birthright citizens.
And it's just like so we're talking about just straight up deporting American citizens for being in proximity to non. So it's like it's pretty wild stuff, and maybe we should do another one of these kind of panels and get everybody back on and make it a lot less fun and a lot more sad and kind of have that conversation.
I think so. And let's get a shitload of people.
This is part one. We'll do part two later and be like, oh, so this was the fun half. Now here's the not so fun half. So with that in mind and with that said, I do got to wrap things up here because also we lost the East Coaster actually, so we're all. Oh, you're Midwest though, right, Craig? So it's probably 9 for you or 10 for you.
Yeah,
maybe?
It's 9:30.
But
Cammy's having a really hard time with everything, but she was happy to be
all
here.
good. Yeah, we didn't want to kind of mention anything, so yeah, if she needed to step away, it's all good. We're happy to have her back and all of you back again. If you want to plug where people can find you, and we'll have all of the links in the descriptions below, both on the audio version and the YouTube version. But tell the people where they can find your stuff.
Sure. Best place is Instagram. We're at 805 Uncensored Pod. We're also on basically all the major social media platforms, TikTok, Threads, etc. We're also on all the major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you have any questions, guest suggestions, or if you just want to shoot the shit, send us an email, 805uncensored@gmail.com, or reach out to us on social media. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, Voices from the Left podcast. My Instagram account is dystopian_grift. That's for my podcast, and then of course I run the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network Instagram account too. And my podcast can be found on all the podcast platforms and other social media stuff. There's a link tree in my Instagram bio, so
we'll have it down there as well. Awesome.
Yeah, you can find that, and this has been great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to have you all on. As always, Revolutionary Rhetoric is an affiliate of the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. Follow us wherever you get your socials, Revolutionary Rhetoric everywhere. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comments, share, subscribe. We do have an audio version. Go follow it on your podcast app of choice. If you're listening to this on podcast app, go over to YouTube. Check us out there. 805 Voices from the Left, Jordan, Heather, Craig, awesome having you guys on. Really great conversation. Love to do this again sometime. Like we mentioned, do the darker half of this conversation. So really, really happy with that. Thanks so much, guys.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to be here.